That line will get you an applause break from all sides. When Kamala says, we're not going back, the undecided voter thinks, no, I don't want to get on the short bus back to Trump Town. But I also don't want to go back to 2020. Please, God, don't make me sit through another one of those corporate mandated sensitivity training sessions. In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. And like an electric car, your MAGA uncle can't explain why she fills him with homicidal rage. She just does. Sometimes life isn't fair. It's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how... Okay, bad example. Above any matters of politics or what's right or wrong, the one thing I know for sure about America is this. It's run by mean girls. Mean girls in the press and in politics and in life. And when they smell blood in the water, the lust to finish off a vulnerable person will never be denied.
Democrats look like they're in panic mode, and every attempt to bounce back keeps falling flat. Bill Maher says voters are tired of scripted messaging, recycled lines, and a party that feels more disconnected every day. His critique was sharp, nonstop, and politically damaging. So if you want the full breakdown, hit subscribe because this gets intense fast.
Looting was rebranded as justice shopping. We stopped arresting shoplifters. Anti-racist baby was a bestseller. Corporations took DEI to ludicrous lengths. We opened our hearts to all who wanted to come here, and then also our borders. Portland decriminalized all drugs, and Seattle set up a no-cop zone until they had to reverse course on both. Standardized testing was dropped until schools saw how dumb that was. And yet, the head of the teachers union in Chicago still maintains that testing is, quote, junk science rooted in white supremacy.
Maher begins with what he calls the core issue, the party's deep attachment to wokeness. Even after losing support in elections, Democrats in heavily blue areas still hold on to ideas voters have been rejecting for years. California is his main example. Crime was downplayed, shoplifting was ignored, and leaders kept covering failure with polished moral language while neighborhoods clearly declined. At the same time, homelessness grew into a constant public crisis, with suffering visible everywhere while officials praised their own compassion. That contradiction hurts them. Maher's point is direct. Voters are done hearing virtue from leaders overseeing decline. People can see reality for themselves, and they no longer buy the explanations.
And her union tweeted during COVID, when many Americans felt we could have gotten back to normal sooner, that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. No, it was rooted in reading, writing, and arithmetic. The teaching of which is apparently job none in Chicago because only about 1 in 4 students in the city are proficient in either math or English, and absenteeism is off the charts. The teachers there want a raise now, and look, I'm always all for all teachers always getting a raise everywhere. I hate kids. I can't imagine being around them all day.
Maher then focuses on education, and this is where his argument becomes even tougher. He says Democrats didn't just lower standards, they helped destroy them. Standardized testing was criticized and treated like something harmful, as if checking whether students can read, write, and do math became offensive. But reality doesn't follow ideology. The situation in Chicago is alarming. Only about 1 in 4 students meets basic standards in subjects like math and English. 1 in 4. That's a serious problem. While activists and politicians reshaped the conversation, students kept falling behind. Maher's point hits hard here. These aren't just numbers. These are real kids losing progress while leaders acted like everything was fine. Voters see that failure and they're angry.
But I also think Kamala Harris could have a moment if she trotted out her favorite phrase and said, let me be very clear. Our schools need to do better. Our kids need to be in school, and when they're there, they need to have the phones off and the brains on, learning the basic things we used to teach. And the idea that testing is rooted in white supremacy is in itself a racist belief that says black children can't compete with white children on tests, which they surely can.
Maher's next criticism targets something even more damaging: silence. While all this was happening, where were the Democrats willing to speak up? Where was Kamala Harris? Where was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Where was Gavin Newsom, Adam Schiff, Bernie Sanders, or any major figure willing to challenge the direction of their own party? Maher says they weren't cautious, they were silent. And that silence wasn't brave, it was weak. As bad ideas spread and frustration grew, leaders chose comfort over honesty. People were waiting for someone to call it out. Instead, they got silence protected by party loyalty, and voters remember who stayed quiet.
That line will get you an applause break from all sides. When Kamala says, "We're not going back," the undecided voter thinks, "No, I don't want to get on the short bus back to Trump Town. But I also don't want to go back to 2020. Please, God, don't make me sit through another one of those corporate mandated sensitivity training sessions."
Maher also highlights another issue Democrats haven't moved past, the backlash against DEI and mandatory sensitivity training. For many Americans, that period felt like constant ideological pressure. Merit seemed less important while identity politics and symbolic actions took center stage. In workplaces across the country, employees were required to attend sessions that felt more like forced agreement than helpful training. People were expected to listen, adjust their language, and act like it was meaningful. But it didn't feel helpful. It felt forced, uncomfortable, and divisive. Maher's point is that voters still remember how restrictive that period felt, and no rebranding will make them want it again.
Above any matters of politics or what's right or wrong, the one thing I know for sure about America is this: it's run by mean girls. Mean girls in the press and in politics and in life. And when they smell blood in the water, the lust to finish off a vulnerable person will never be denied.
Then comes one of Maher's most memorable arguments. He says America is being influenced by mean girls, meaning a loud and self-righteous group on the far left that turned politics into punishment. These were people who acted like they alone decided what could be said, joked about, or questioned. Step outside those limits and the backlash was immediate. Public shaming, online attacks, cancel efforts, and career damage followed quickly. No balance, no understanding, no room for debate. Maher argues Democrats gave this group too much control, and it created a toxic environment. Moderate voters felt pushed away, everyday people felt judged, and basic common sense was treated like it was wrong. As that culture grew, the party started looking less open and more hostile.
The downside is that governor of California is kind of like being conservator for Britney Spears. They'll attack him on California's homeless problem, but there's a response to that. The homeless can live anywhere, but they choose California. 9 out of 10 machete-wielding meth addicts say they wouldn't be unhoused anywhere else. Of course, the knock on Gavin has always been that he's slick.
Maher also believes Democrats have a problem with candidates, and Gavin Newsom is his example. Inside the party, Newsom is seen as polished and ready for a national role. But outside that circle, many voters see something different. They see someone who avoids direct answers. Ask about homelessness, crime, or visible problems in California, and the response feels like performance instead of clarity. You get the practiced smile, the smooth tone, and a carefully managed answer that avoids responsibility. That might impress supporters, but for skeptical voters it feels fake. And appearing fake is something Democrats can't afford right now.
In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. And like an electric car, your MAGA uncle can't explain why she fills him with homicidal rage. She just does. Sometimes life isn't fair. It's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how... Okay, bad example.
Maher also believes Democrats have a problem with candidates, and Gavin Newsom is his example. Inside the party, Newsom is seen as polished and ready for a national role. But outside that circle, many voters see something different. They see someone who avoids direct answers. Ask about homelessness, crime, or visible problems in California, and the response feels like performance instead of clarity. You get the practiced smile, the smooth tone, and a carefully managed answer that avoids responsibility. That might impress supporters, but for skeptical voters it feels fake. And appearing fake is something Democrats can't afford right now.
Okay, finally, there's this. 37% of our presidents were governors first. The Democratic Party has all these very capable, popular, progressive, but not stupid woke governors. Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, Josh Shapiro, Jared Polis, J.B. Pritzker, Tom Claymore. Okay, I made up Tom Claymore. But that's because it's important to understand no one knows who these people are, and that's good. We need some new characters on this sitcom we call a country.
Kamala Harris also faces criticism. Maher sees her as an example of potential that never fully developed into confidence. In his view, her time as vice president felt more like drifting than leading, with limited strong public impact. Then there's the border issue, which became a major test. She was given a big responsibility, but the public didn't see a clear solution. Add to that fewer tough interviews, visible discomfort under pressure, and answers that often felt unclear or incomplete, and the problem became obvious. Maher's conclusion is direct. Voters have already formed their opinion, and no rebranding will change the impression that she didn't become the strong leader Democrats needed.
When the Harris campaign launched, they got great traction by calling Trump and Vance weird. That was good. Weird was working. People are tired of weird, and ever since Donald Trump decided to dominate our lives, the Democrats' argument has been, we'll restore normal. Well, if what you're selling is let's be normal again, here's an idea. Be normal. America doesn't need a revolution. It needs fixing.
But Maher doesn't only criticize, he also suggests what Democrats should do next. His answer is simple. The old leadership needs to step aside. The same familiar figures and political performers who helped create these problems shouldn't be expected to fix them. Instead, he points to names like Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, and Gretchen Whitmer. Leaders he sees as more practical, more grounded, and better able to connect with everyday voters without sounding forced or overly ideological. His point isn't about a full revolution, it's about real change in leadership. People who can speak clearly, lead effectively, and reconnect with voters who have lost patience. Maher ends with what might be his strongest message because it sounds so simple. He says Democrats need to return to normal. Not extreme, not obsessed, not constantly focused on identity politics or cultural fights, just normal. He argues the party has worn people out by turning every issue into a performance, every disagreement into a moral battle, and every debate into a lecture. In his